Welcome back to The Explainer. Okay, let's dive into this. Today, we're taking a fascinating trip back in time, straight into the dirt, the sweat, and the grit of an ancient Greek farm. Because instead of just staring at a dry list of disconnected vocabulary words from Athenaze chapter 2, we're going to learn this language the right way, by stepping right into a day in the life of an Athenian farmer. We'll be unpacking the specific nouns and verbs that bring this entire world to life, mastering the language exactly as it was spoken out there in the fields.
Just picture it, a plowman, right there with his yoke of oxen. This immediately visually anchors us in the ancient world, doesn't it? We aren't just memorizing abstract words today, we're building a living, breathing story. And we're going to start by getting to know the characters and the core tools of the trade. Because honestly, if you want to read ancient texts, you absolutely have to understand the daily realities that shaped their language in the first place.
Section 1. The Greek farm characters in tools.
First up, we've got the real heavy lifter of the ancient farm, don boon, meaning the ox. And notice we have it here in the accusative case, the direct object, because as you'll see in a minute, the ox is pretty much constantly being driven, led around, or yelled at. Having a visual of the ox really helps us grasp this setting. This wasn't mechanized farming. This was pure muscle, dirt, and grit.
Next, we meet Hodoulos, the slave. In our specific story, his name is Xanthias. He is an absolutely crucial figure on the farm of our main character, the farmer Dikaiopoulos. The dynamic between the master and the slave is basically the engine of the stories we'll be reading, so getting a solid grip on this noun is critical for following the dialogue and the action.
And finally, the essential inanimate object they're constantly interacting with, to aroltron, the plow. So with the ox, the slave, and the plow securely in our minds, we've essentially got all the pieces ready on the board. Now we can actually watch the hard work begin.
Section 2. Farm labor in action.
Let's move to and see how this builds. Our very first action verb is lamvano, meaning I take or I take hold of. Now this verb is transitive, which means it demands a direct object in the accusative case. Someone has to actually take hold of something to get the morning chores started.
And here it is right in action. Hodoulos to arotron lambani. The slave takes the plow. Look at that! Just by combining the words we literally just learned a few seconds ago, we are already reading a real complete ancient Greek sentence. We see the subject actively taking the direct object. It's repetition with variation, and let me tell you, it cements the vocabulary in your brain instantly.
Now, here's a really fascinating nuance between two verbs of motion. You might already know the base verb veno for walking or stepping. But here we have ekbeno, used in this very limited, specific sense of stepping out, like literally stepping out of your house to start the day. On the flip side, the uncompounded verb erchome, meaning I come or go, is actually incredibly rare in early Attic prose. Before the 1st century BC, you almost never find it on its own, without some kind of prefix. It's exactly these little nuances that make reading Greek so incredibly rewarding.
Okay, so once we've stepped out of the house, the real work begins. Enter elauno, meaning I drive. This is the action Dikaiopoulos has to take to get those stubborn animals moving into the fields. He might ago, lead them, or maybe isago, lead them in, all while the poor slave has to akalotho, follow behind. And to keep those oxen moving, he might even have to kento, goad, or prick them.
So the crucial point is seeing how this verb operates in full context. Listen to this. Ego elauno tous bous ek tu agru. I am driving the oxen out of the field. Notice the ego, the I, making this a very direct first-person action. We are actively narrating the progression of our mini-narrative here. The farmer is totally in control, driving those accusative plural oxen.
But let's be real, it's not a gentle Sunday drive. We also have to introduce the heavy labor verb elko, meaning I drag. This is the back-breaking reality when you aro, plow that stubborn earth, dragging a heavy wooden plow through the rocks, just hoping to plethino, multiply your crops for the season.
But what happens when the oxen just flat out refuse to move? Suddenly, drama unfolds on the farm. Hoivois ukieti helkusit to arotron. The oxen no longer drag the plow. Everything has completely ground to a halt. Uketi no longer. You can just picture the completely frustrated farmer throwing his hands up in the air in defeat, right? So when the work stops dead, our characters have to figure out what's wrong. They stop and they look. Blepo. They use this verb to look closely at those stubborn oxen, or maybe to see a massive stone that's suddenly blocking the plow's path. Bleepo represents that tense pause in the action right before the big reaction.
Section 3. Urgent commands. Notice this pattern of short, really sharp verb forms. The imperative mood is used to give orders, and let me tell you, Diakopoulos uses it a lot. Spoude, hurry up. Elthe, come here. You instantly recognize the tone of the conversation here. The master is losing his patience fast.
Just listen to the frustration dripping from this demand. Elthed deuro kasalambane. Come here and help. We see elthe paired right up with deuro, meaning here. It's a direct, forceful command demanding that the slave get on his feet and get to work. This isn't a textbook exercise. This is living dialogue.
I actually really love this next quote because it adds just a touch of tasteful humor about the daily realities of the master-slave dynamic. Mi chalepos isti, o dule, ala pone. Don't be difficult, slave, but work. When things aren't going to plan, the master's frustration completely boils over. Notice that direct address with o dule, calling out to him directly. It paints a very vivid, very human picture of ancient life.
Section 4. Reading ancient Greek sentences. And this brilliantly illustrates where all this vocabulary building actually leads. Let's break down a full sentence step by step to prove just how much vocabulary you've mastered in a matter of minutes. First chunk, hold the doulos, but the slave. Next, to autotron lambani, takes the plow. There's our noun and our verb perfectly paired. Next, kafere, and carries it. Finally, pros ton wikon, toward the house. Hold the doulos to autotron lambani, kafere, pros ton wikon. Look at how naturally that narrative flows. You aren't just reciting flashcards anymore. You're reading a genuine story about a slave packing up the tools at the end of a hard day's work.
Which brings us to our final big picture thought. It might seem like we're just looking at humble, everyday farm words, plows, oxen, shouting at slaves. But how does mastering the simple vocabulary of a farmer's daily toil actually unlock our understanding of the minds, the culture, and the epic literature of the entire ancient world? Well, because this grit, this profound connection to the land, it is the absolute bedrock of ancient Greek society. The metaphors, the poetry, the histories, they are all firmly rooted in this very soil. By understanding the farm, you are literally unlocking the gateway to the entirety of ancient Greek culture. Think about that as you review these words, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.